At exactly the moment Shanghai opens, before New York speaks and before London reacts, silver reveals its first truth of the day. Not in headlines or television debates, but in a quiet number printed in yuan. And that number can move billions. If the premium holds, it signals pressure building beneath the surface. If the premium collapses, it signals something else entirely. Banks are watching, institutions are adjusting, and somewhere between paper contracts and physical metal, a tension is forming. Tonight, the question is simple. Is silver preparing to rally, or are banks preparing to push back? And what happens if neither side gives way? Welcome to AG Market Stress. If you have been watching markets for years and understand that real signals are quiet, not loud, then this channel is for you. Take a calm moment and press the subscribe button the way a careful investor signs a document before closing the office for the evening. And write in the comments where you're watching from today. Which city, which country, which side of the market. Now they begin. When the Shanghai Futures Exchange opens, most Western investors are asleep. But the serious desks are not. They are watching. Because over the past decade, something fundamental has shifted. Price discovery in silver no longer belongs only to New York or London. It is now shared, and sometimes it is led by Shanghai. In earlier cycles, Western futures markets dictated direction, Asia reacted, arbitrage followed, and balance returned. But that structure has weakened. China is now one of the largest industrial consumers of silver in the world. Solar manufacturing, electronics production, and strategic reserves all contribute to sustained demand. That demand does not wait for Western confirmation. It expresses itself directly in Shanghai settlement prices. Those prices are quoted in renminbi per kilogram, a different currency, a different contract size, and a different regulatory environment. That difference matters. When Shanghai opens with a strong premium above Western spot prices, it sends a signal. It suggests that physical demand inside Asia is willing to pay more than paper markets in the West imply. This is not emotion, it is arithmetic. If the converted Shanghai price exceeds COMEX silver by $2 or $3 per ounce, that is not noise. That is friction between physical and paper markets. And friction is pressure. They understand that sustained premiums are rarely accidental. A one-day premium can be arbitraged, metal can be moved, contracts can be adjusted. But when a premium refuses to close for several sessions, the explanation becomes more structural. It suggests either physical tightness or restricted arbitrage capacity. Both scenarios matter. Banks operating in Western futures markets carry exposure. They hedge producers. They structure derivatives. They provide liquidity. Their models assume relative alignment between major exchanges. When that alignment begins to stretch, risk managers take notice. He sees it on the dashboard, she sees it in volatility metrics, they see it in overnight settlement spreads widening beyond normal ranges. And this cycle is already fragile. Silver recently experienced violent swings. Prices moved sharply higher before retracing. Such movement strains leveraged participants. Margin calls rise, liquidations accelerate, confidence becomes thinner. In that environment, the Shanghai Open becomes more than a session. It becomes an early warning mechanism. If Asia is bidding aggressively for physical silver, it suggests underlying industrial strength or strategic accumulation. If Western banks respond by increasing futures supply, that suggests a defensive posture. The tension becomes visible in the spread. This is why serious capital does not ignore the first hour of Shanghai trade. It is not about drama, it is about flow of capital, flow of inventory, flow of risk. A widening premium means someone is absorbing supply at higher prices. A collapsing premium means either demand has paused or liquidity has been introduced strategically. Neither interpretation should be taken lightly, because silver is not merely an industrial metal. It carries monetary history. In periods of currency uncertainty, it attracts defensive capital. In periods of manufacturing expansion, it attracts industrial demand. When both forces operate at the same time, volatility increases, and banks prefer stability. If the Shanghai premium begins to expand while warehouse stocks in the West decline, the signal strengthens. It suggests that physical metal is leaving inventories faster than futures contracts can comfortably represent. He understands this as a balance sheet issue. She understands it as a liquidity management challenge. They understand it as systemic pressure. The business community should also understand it. Commodity stress often appears first in subtle divergences, not in headlines, not in policy speeches, but in pricing spreads between regions. Shanghai opens, the number prints, the conversion begins, and within that simple calculation lies a message. The question now is whether that message signals temporary imbalance or the early stage of something much larger. Before volatility becomes visible, before headlines begin to speculate, before analysts publish their revised targets, there's always a number, and that number is rarely dramatic. It appears quietly on a settlement sheet from the Shanghai Futures Exchange. It is quoted in renminbi, it is listed per kilogram, and to the untrained eye, it means very little. But to those who understand spread analysis, that number is not just a price. It is a comparison. They begin with a raw figure. For example, Shanghai silver settles at a certain RMB amount per kilogram. That number must then be converted carefully. First, from renminbi to US dollars. Second, from kilograms to ounces. Only after those conversions can it be compared properly to COMEX silver, which is quoted in dollars per ounce. This is not complex mathematics, but it requires discipline. 1 kilogram equals 32.57 troy ounces. The exchange rate must be applied precisely. The resulting dollar figure must then be aligned against Western spot. When that calculation is complete, a spread appears. That spread is the premium. If Shanghai's converted price equals $84 per ounce, while COMEX trades at $81, the premium is $3. $3 may sound small. In percentage terms, it may appear manageable. But in commodities, sustained differences matter more than large, temporary spikes. He understands this immediately. She examines whether the spread holds for multiple sessions. They track whether the premium expands during rising prices or persists during pullbacks, because premiums behave in patterns. The first pattern is the arbitrage premium. It appears suddenly and disappears quickly. Traders move metal. Futures positions adjust. The imbalance closes. This is normal market function. The second pattern is the structural demand premium. This is different. It remains for days, sometimes weeks. It reflects underlying physical need. Industrial buyers continue purchasing even when prices rise. Arbitrage is attempted, but constraints limit its effectiveness. The third pattern is the stress premium. This is the one institutions monitor carefully. It widens during volatility. It refuses to close despite intervention. It signals that physical markets and paper markets are operating under different pressures. Right now, the environment is fragile. Exchange rates are fluctuating. Global manufacturing demand is uneven. And financial institutions are navigating higher capital requirements and tighter liquidity management. Under such conditions, arbitrage is not always simple. Capital controls restrict cross-border metal movement. Shipping delays add time costs. Refining capacity is not infinite. Banks must also evaluate balance sheet exposure. Moving physical silver across continents is not merely logistical, it is financial. It ties up capital. It increases risk weightings. It requires confidence in settlement mechanisms. If the premium persists despite these efforts, it suggests that demand within Shanghai is absorbing available supply faster than Western markets can equalize. That message matters because a sustained premium changes behavior. Industrial buyers may accelerate purchasing to secure inventory before further increases. Speculators may interpret the spread as confirmation of tightness. Banks may respond by adjusting futures exposure or raising margin requirements. Every action feeds back into the system. The premium is therefore not just a difference between two exchanges. It is a signal about global supply chains. Silver is heavily used in solar panels, electronics, and emerging technologies. When Shanghai pays more consistently, it may indicate strong forward orders. That suggests industrial confidence. Alternatively, it may indicate strategic stockpiling. In both cases, the implication is demand strength. He does not interpret a single day. She does not react to noise. They look for persistence. 3 consecutive sessions of elevated premium carry more meaning than a one-day spike. A premium that widens during price declines is even more significant. It suggests buyers are stepping in despite falling futures. That divergence is critical because futures markets can be influenced by leverage. Physical markets are influenced by need. If Western futures prices soften while Shanghai physical demand remains firm, the spread becomes a silent disagreement between financial traders and industrial consumers. History shows that sustained disagreement rarely resolves quietly. Eventually, one side adjusts. Either Shanghai premiums compress because demand cools, or Western prices rise to close the gap. There is a third possibility as well. Banks intervene strategically, increasing liquidity to narrow spreads artificially. That may stabilize markets temporarily, but if underlying demand remains strong, pressure rebuilds. This is why the premium equation must be calculated daily during volatile cycles. It is not about speculation. It is about structural alignment. When global exchanges price the same metal differently for extended periods, the market is revealing stress. The numbers may appear small. The calculations may seem technical. But within those quiet conversions, the system begins to whisper, and the disciplined observer listens. There's a moment in every commodity cycle when the price is no longer the real story becomes the response. Because when silver begins to move with force, banks do not panic. They calculate. They do not argue with headlines. They adjust margin tables. They do not issue warnings. They modify liquidity conditions. And most observers never notice. When volatility rises sharply, the first institutional tool is margin adjustment. Exchanges increase the amount of capital required to hold futures positions. On the surface, this appears administrative, but its effect is immediate. Leveraged traders must either add capital or reduce exposure. He receives a notification from his broker. She reviews collateral requirements before market open. They recognize that the cost of participation has increased, and when participation becomes more expensive, speculative demand contracts. This is not suppression, it is containment. If silver rises rapidly toward extreme levels, margin hikes slow the acceleration. Long positions face pressure. Some are liquidated automatically, others are reduced voluntarily. Selling increases, even in the absence of fundamental weakness. Price pulls back. Stability appears restored, but margin is only one layer. The second layer is liquidity provision. Large institutions provide significant volume on futures exchanges. During rallies, additional supply can enter the market through short positioning. This does not always indicate directional conviction. Often, it reflects balance sheet hedging. Banks frequently hedge producer contracts or structured derivatives tied to silver. When price rises sharply, hedge ratios must adjust. More futures contracts are sold to maintain neutrality. The market experiences selling into strength. To retail observers, it may appear as resistance. To institutions, it is risk management. The third layer is warehouse positioning. Silver futures are ultimately connected to deliverable inventory. On Western exchanges, metal is categorized as registered or eligible. Registered inventory is available for delivery. Eligible inventory meets standards but is not committed. When registered stocks decline steadily while premiums in Shanghai widen, tension increases because delivery matters. If more contract holders request physical settlement rather than cash settlement, strain builds. The system can accommodate normal flows. It cannot easily absorb surges. He watches warehouse reports weekly. She tracks delivery notices against open interest. They compare inventory drawdowns to historical baselines. If open interest remains elevated while registered stocks fall, confidence becomes the hidden variable. Most contracts settle in cash. That is expected. But if confidence in delivery weakens, futures pricing may begin to disconnect from physical pricing. Backwardation can appear. Premiums widen further. Liquidity tightens. Banks are aware of this risk long before the public discussion begins. Their objective is not to win against silver, it is to prevent disorder. Because disorder in a key industrial metal does not remain isolated, it spreads into currency markets, mining equities, structured products, and credit exposures, so they act early. They may increase margin requirements. They may expand short-term liquidity. They may encourage cash settlement through incentives. Each step is subtle. Each step is calculated. And sometimes these measures work. A sharp rally pauses. The premium narrows. Volatility compresses. But sometimes underlying demand is stronger than financial containment. If Shanghai continues to absorb metal at elevated prices, if industrial buyers continue placing forward orders, if warehouse inventories continue declining despite intervention, then containment becomes more expensive. The balance sheet absorbs stress. This is where the paper-physical tension becomes visible. Futures contracts represent multiples of available deliverable supply. That structure functions efficiently during stable periods. It relies on confidence. It relies on the expectation that not all participants will demand physical metal simultaneously. If that expectation shifts, pricing dynamics change rapidly. He understands that silver is both commodity and monetary asset. She understands that volatility in silver often precedes broader liquidity events. They recognize that banks push back not out of hostility, but out of systemic responsibility. The question is not whether banks can influence short-term direction. They can. The question is whether structural demand will eventually overpower tactical containment. Because if it does, the rally will not be gradual. It will be repricing, and repricing rarely announces itself politely. By the time the Shanghai Open begins to matter, by the time premiums persist, by the time banks start adjusting margin and liquidity, the market has already entered a decision phase. Silver does not move randomly at this stage. It moves according to pressure, and pressure must eventually resolve. There are only 3 realistic paths forward. They are not predictions, they are structured possibilities. And serious decision makers prepare for all 3. Scenario 1, the contained rally. In this outcome, the Shanghai premium narrows gradually, arbitrage flows increase, metal moves where it is needed, exchange rate adjustments stabilize conversion spreads, margin hikes reduce speculative leverage, warehouse inventories stop declining, delivery volumes remain manageable. Futures and physical pricing begin to align again. The rally continues, but within limits. Silver rises in measured increments. Pullbacks occur, but they are orderly. Banks maintain control over liquidity conditions. Industrial buyers secure supply without panic. In this scenario, volatility becomes manageable rather than explosive. For business owners, this means planning rather than reacting. Manufacturers hedge input costs gradually. Entrepreneurs monitor supplier contracts closely. Investors allocate capital without urgency. The system absorbs stress. This is the most stable outcome, but it requires one condition, that physical demand does not accelerate beyond the capacity of financial markets to contain it. Scenario 2, the accelerated breakout. In this outcome, the Shanghai premium does not narrow, it expands. Each session opens with persistent strength. The converted price remains several dollars above Western futures. Arbitrage attempts fail to close the gap quickly. At the same time, registered warehouse stocks begin declining steadily. Delivery notices increase. Margin hikes slow speculation, but they do not reduce underlying demand. Banks continue to push back, but demand keeps pressing forward. In this environment, confidence shifts. Traders begin to anticipate further divergence. Industrial buyers accelerate purchases to avoid future shortages. Speculative capital re-enters despite higher margins. The rally becomes self-reinforcing. Silver does not rise slowly in this scenario. It reprices in steps. A $5 move becomes common. $10 swings no longer shock the market. Liquidity thins at higher levels. Price discovery becomes more aggressive. For the business community, this outcome demands preparation. Input costs may rise rapidly. Working capital requirements expand. Credit conditions tighten as volatility spreads to related markets. Entrepreneurs exposed to silver-dependent industries must manage inventory risk carefully. Investors must account for wider price bands and higher collateral requirements. This scenario does not imply collapse. It implies acceleration. But acceleration tests balance sheets. Scenario 3. Structural disruption. This is the scenario few institutions discuss openly. In this outcome, divergence between physical and paper markets becomes severe. Shanghai premiums remain elevated for extended periods. Western warehouse inventories fall below comfort thresholds. Delivery requests strain logistics. Futures markets respond with higher margins and expanded liquidity tools. But the response fails to restore alignment. Cash settlement becomes more common. Confidence in guaranteed physical delivery begins to weaken. Backwardation deepens. At this point, silver transitions from commodity stress to systemic signal. He recognizes that monetary history often reappears quietly. She understands that metals function as confidence indicators during currency uncertainty. They see that price is no longer just industrial. It becomes protective. If confidence erodes meaningfully, repricing becomes rapid and disorderly. Silver could move far beyond prior highs in short intervals, not because of speculation alone, but because trust in settlement mechanisms weakens. In such a scenario, volatility spills outward. Mining equities react sharply. Currency markets experience unusual pressure. Credit spreads widen in commodity-linked sectors. This is not a forecast of collapse. It is a recognition of risk structure. And while rare, structural disruptions tend to unfold faster than most participants expect. The strategic implication. For the business community, the lesson is not to speculate recklessly. It is to observe carefully. Shanghai is no longer peripheral. It is central to price discovery. The premium calculation is not a technical exercise. It is an early warning tool. If spreads narrow, stability may return. If spreads widen, preparation becomes necessary. Silver is functioning as a stress barometer. The Shanghai Open is the moment the barometer resets each day. And in markets, pressure does not disappear. It resolves. The only remaining question is which path this cycle will choose. Contained, accelerated, or disrupted. And when the next Shanghai session opens, the numbers will speak again,